Hey y'all, Keeney coming to you with another pro tip of the day. So we've got an '07 Compass in the garage tonight, and if you've ever done any power steering work on any vehicle, you know sometimes that it can be challenging to bleed the air at the end of the service after you've opened the system to atmospheric air. Getting all of that residual air out sometimes does not go as easily as just turning the wheel back and forth. So if you have a problem and turning the wheel back and forth is just not getting the rest of the air out, this is how you can get all of that residual air out of the system. So I've just got my normal pneumatic vacuum bleeder hooked up to shop air, and then on the other end of this bleeder I have a bunch of attachments that just come in your typical hand pump Mighty Vac kit, those little vacuum gauge hand pump deals. They come with all the little rubber attachments, so I just stuff all those on the end of my pneumatic bleeder, and then I'll actually typically do this in 3 steps. So step 1, after I've reassembled everything, I'll just have the engine off and I'll run the wheel back and forth just like normal. And then after I've done that, because as you rotate whatever steering, gearbox, rack, pinion device that the vehicle has, it'll still push quite a bit of air out of that by just turning the wheel. You don't even have to have the engine on. After I've done that one step, I will then get my vacuum bleeder with all my attachments. I'll make sure the end here is coated in some sort of liquid or power steering fluid to get a good seal. And then this works on most power steering systems and reservoirs that I have personally done. I'm sure there's some out there that it won't, but nonetheless, once you have this end piece here coated in some sort of oil or liquid to get a good seal, you can just put it right on top of the cap. Some of them it'll just sit right on top of. This one I'll actually push down inside the reservoir slightly, and then I'll hit the vacuum handle to suck it the rest of the way in. There we go. So took me a couple times, but now it's in. So now what this is doing, the fluid level is not all the way at the top. The fluid level is above the return hose, which doesn't really matter, but I have fluid about halfway in this reservoir. Now, when I actually pull a vacuum, so there's an air gap at the top of this reservoir. Now, when I actually pull a vacuum inside this reservoir, it will pull a vacuum on the rest of the lines and the components in the system also, while having this vacuum applied constantly. So my little pneumatic vacuum thing has a lock on the end, so I can lock the handle and it will constantly pull vacuum as long as it's there. So while pulling vacuum on the system, I will then go back in the car and rotate the wheel back and forth, and you will be surprised at how aerated this fluid will look if you pull it off really quick. It actually does a really good job of pulling all that air from the unique corners of the system. Then, after I've done that second step with the engine off, I'll go in the car and start the engine, repeat the same procedure. Obviously, occasionally checking in here because I don't want this fluid level to get too low. So as I go through each step, I'll also recheck the fluid level to make sure it's okay. But in short, if you pull a vacuum on the system while running the wheel back and forth with the engine off and the engine on, you should have pretty good results on getting all of that residual air out of the system. Hope that helps. That's all I got for you this time. I will catch y'all in the next one.